The endless dunes of Tarsus 9 lay beneath a copper sky, where the wind carved ripples in the sand like slow waves on a quiet sea. Each gust lifted tiny grains that danced in the air, catching the light and scattering it like shattered glass. In this vast wasteland, heat clung to every surface, making metal shimmer and wood crackle. The world felt empty and still, as though no living thing had dared to cross these red plains for centuries, until the distant shape of a broken ship caught the eye, a stark scar against the smooth sands. The vessel lay half buried, its hull split in two by a violent impact. Panels of curved alloy twisted into odd angles and wires hung like vines from a fallen tree. A thick cloud of dust rose where the main cabin had peeled away, its doors torn free and corners bent. Sharp edges of metal blade into the sand, and its wingtip lay nearby, stubbornly refusing to vanish beneath the dunes. No smoke rose now, only the heat haze glimmering over the wreck, as if the ship itself still burned. Inside the wreck, tangled beneath a fallen support beam, lay the lone survivor. Kalis, an alien woman from a distant world, was trapped under crushed metal. Her skin was pale and smooth, almost luminous against the dark wreckage. Thin wisps of energy pulsed along her limbs, casting soft blue light on the twisted panels around her. She pressed her hand to the hot sand, leaving a glowing imprint before her strength faded. Her breathing came in shallow bursts, as if each breath were a battle won. At first, the only witnesses were scavengers drawn by rumor and the hope of salvage. They crept close enough to see the glow but stayed well clear of the crash. One dared to step forward, his boots sinking into the warm sand, but as he raised a hand toward Kalis, his eyes flicked back to his companions in silent question. They shook their heads, voices low and urgent, warning him of the crackling power that seemed to drift from her scars. The scavengers clustered at the rim of the wreck, debating whether the prize was worth the risk. A few brandished simple tools, steel rods, small grappling hooks meant for lifting debris or prying open doors. Yet no one moved. The faint hum of Kalis's biofield grew stronger with every passing moment, and the men felt a soft trembling in their veins as though the alien energy reached out to test them. Fear made their hands shake. Their leader, a grizzled man with a scar across his cheek, finally turned away, muttering that the ship was cursed. Word of the crash spread quickly through the scattered frontier outposts. Messengers on skiffs and sand riders on swift beasts carried news from every small station. At each stop, the tale grew wilder. Some said the ship had fallen from the sky in a single blazing arc. Others claimed the survivor could heal any wound or bend the elements to her will. Few believed such stories, but none could deny that no one returned with metal from the wreck. The desert seemed to guard its secret fiercely. At the closest settlement, a cluster of low-roofed buildings half sunken in the dunes, elders gathered under the shade of an old steel canopy. They spoke of ancient legends, when other worlds brushed against Tarsus 9 and left behind strange gifts and strange curses. They decided to send no rescue. Supplies were scarce, and to risk lives for an unknown being seemed folly. Instead, they would watch from a distance, ready to help if the survivor somehow reached them. Meanwhile, on the red sands, Kalis lay waiting. Each breath brought pain, but her eyes remained open, glowing softly in the dim light. She could feel the heat of the day fading into cool dusk, but no comfort came. The stars would wheel into view soon, and night on Tarsus 9 was said to hold its own dangers, cold that cut like a blade, and creatures that moved in the shifting shadows. Yet through it all, Kalis did not lose hope. A small spark of life shone in her heart, a promise that she would survive. As the sun dipped below the dunes and shadows stretched long and thin, the desert grew quiet once more. Sand covered broken panels bit by bit, and the hum of Kalis's energy softened to a gentle pulse. No friendly voice broke the hush. No strong arms lifted her free. Still she waited, certain that someone, some being with courage enough to cross the empty wastes, would come. And so, under a sky of fading red, the first chapter of her story came to rest on the wound she bore, waiting for the hand that would help her rise. The wind of Tarsus 9 carried fine red dust across the desert, settling in every crack and crease of the land. The broken ship lay under the harsh sky, half hidden by drifting dunes. For days, no one dared to claim its prize or free the strange woman trapped inside. Rumors spread fast among frontier folk, but fear kept them away. Yet one man, known simply as Rin Archer, felt a pull stronger than any whisper of danger. Rin had earned his reputation at the edges of known space. Once a soldier in the Alliance Guard, he left after he refused to follow an order that would have harmed innocents. He became a wanderer, a protector of those who could not protect themselves. He carried no banner, answered no lord, and claimed no reward. Stories of his deeds traveled on traders' lips and in campfire tales, but Rin never sought praise. He listened instead for cries of need. On the morning of his arrival, the sun rose like a burning coin over the red sands. Rin guided his skiff, patched together craft of human design, toward the crash site. Its engine sputtered like an old animal, but it moved with steady purpose. Rin wore simple armor, lightweight plates over a dark tunic, a belt of pouches at his waist, and boots thick enough to handle hot sand. His face was calm, framed by short hair and a beard of a few days' growth. He carried no visible weapons, only a medical pack and a hooked tool for digging. As he approached, he saw scavengers clustered at the rim of the wreck. They froze at his approach, size and number making them confident, but the sight of a lone stranger halted their plans. Rin stepped into the circle of red and gold light, sand shifting under his boots. He made no move to join their huddle. Instead, he knelt at a safe distance and studied the wreckage, noting where metal bent sharp and where the hull still glowed from the crash. One of the scavengers, a tall man with metal bracers, spoke up. "This place is cursed," he said, voice rough as the dunes. "No tech can touch it. No one can reach her." He gestured toward the twisted cabin, where the faint blue glow still pulsed. The others nodded, eyes wide with fear. Rin listened, but did not flinch. He rose slowly, brushing dust from his tunic. "I want to try," he said, voice neither loud nor quiet, but clear. The scavengers laughed, a harsh sound in the open desert. "You'll die," another said, shaking his head. "The energy will burn you alive." But Rin only glanced at the wreck and walked forward. The scavengers parted for him, uncertain whether to attack or flee. Rin reached the hull and placed a hand on the metal, feeling its heat through his glove. He pulled a small device from his pack, a handheld spectrometer built for surveying dangerous zones. It beeped softly, reading energy patterns too weak for most sensors to detect. Rin studied the readout and gave a small nod. He then took his hooked tool and began to work. He levered twisted beams aside, careful not to break the delicate panels still glowing with alien power. Sparks flew where metal scraped against metal, and a soft blue light washed over Rin's face. The scavengers circled him, some stepping back, others leaning in, fascinated despite their fear. Minutes passed. Sweat beaded on Rin's forehead as he pried open a small hatch. Beyond lay a dim space where heat shimmered like a living thing. Rin leaned in, speaking in a low tone. "I'm here to help," he said. His words seemed strange to the scavengers, who were used to threats and demands, but Rin's calm voice held no lie. With a final push, the hatch swung free. Inside, he saw her, Kalis, her pale form crumpled and fragile, skin glowing like moonlight against the dark metal. Rin paused to let the scavengers see her shape, clearly, then turned back to his work. He slipped off his pack, pulled out a length of soft harness, and looped it around the support beam above. "Stand back," he said. The scavengers hesitated, but Rin's tone left no room for argument. He fastened the harness around his shoulders and, with muscles taut, heaved against the beam. Metal groaned, but slowly it gave way. Rin tilted his head to one side, gauging the weight and position, then pulled again. With a final effort, Rin lifted Kalis free. The alien woman sagged into his arms, her glow dimming as her power drained. Rin held her close, one arm under, her knees and the other across her back. She felt light as a child, but he did not struggle. He shifted the harness so it supported her head, then unhooked himself and stepped back. The scavengers stared in disbelief. The man they had called foolish now cradled the prize they all had feared. Some reached for weapons, but confusion stopped them. Rin glanced at them, then at Kalis. "She's hurt," he said softly. "I will carry her to safety." Without another word, he turned and walked toward his skiff. The scavengers watched as he lifted his burden, sturdy and sure, and strode across the sands. The blue glow of his passenger faded as he moved further from the wreck, but in its place shone a new spark: hope. For Kalis, mortal and alone, that spark burned brighter than any alien power. As Rin climbed into the skiff, he placed Kalis gently on a padded bench and secured her with straps. He offered her a small vial of water, but her eyes remained closed. Rin set his course toward the nearest post, engines roaring to life. Behind him the wreck lay silent, its secrets surrendered at last to a human who dared what no one else would. And so, under the copper sky of Tarsus 9, the lone warrior carried the alien woman into an uncertain future, his courage lighting the way where fear had once ruled all. Rin's skiff hummed across the red sands, leaving behind the broken hull of the alien ship. Inside, Kalis lay on a padded bench, her chest rising and falling raggedly with each breath. Her pale skin glowed faintly, like moonlight on water, but the color was weak and flickering. Rin kept one hand on her shoulder, steadying her as the skiff bounced over dunes and ruts. He spoke in a low voice, though he knew she might not hear him. "Stay with me," he said. "I will not let you go." The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the desert in long shadows and deep gold. Rin steered toward a distant ridge where he planned to find shelter before night fell. Tarsus 9's nights were cold and cruel, yet it was safer than the open dunes. The air in the cockpit felt thick with dust, and the wind outside began to moan like distant voices. Kalis's faint glow pulsed in time with those sounds, as if she sensed the shifting desert around them. Suddenly, a cloud of dust rose on the horizon. Rin tensed, narrowing his eyes. Dust storms were common here, but this plume moved too straight, too fast. He tapped a control and the skiff's sensors spluttered to life, scanning for heat signatures. Several small blips sprang onto the display. Too many to be wildlife. Bandits. Rin had heard of raiders who preyed on travelers in the wasteland. They would kill for water or parts. He glanced at Kalis. "Hold on," he murmured, and flicked a switch. The skiff's engines roared. Rin swerved, kicking the craft into high speed. Behind them, jagged shapes emerged from the dust. 3 hoverbikes and 2 ground skiffs, engines howling as they gave chase. The bandits fired long, thin beams of energy that sizzled through the air. One bolt clipped the side of Rin's skiff, sending a spray of sparks into the sand. Rin gritted his teeth, leaning into the turns. He steered toward a narrow valley between 2 rocky rises, hoping to lose them in the shadows. Kalis stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw the desert blur past and the menacing lights of the pursuers. Her hand reached out, glowing blades of azure energy weaving between her fingers. Rin noticed the glow and slowed the skiff. "No," he said firmly. "Let me handle this." He placed a hand over hers and her power faded back into her veins. Kalis's eyes filled with worry. Rin offered a gentle smile. "You rest," he said. "I can fight." Ahead, the valley walls rose high and close. Rin drove the skiff between them, forcing the bandits to follow in single file. The canyon turned tight, like a twisting maze. Rin pressed the throttle, weaving around rock pillars and sharp corners. Dust roared up behind them. The bandits cursed as they swerved, some losing control and crashing into the canyon walls. One hoverbike flipped and spun, its rider thrown into the sands. 2 remaining pursuers were more cautious. They raised their weapons, firing volleys of energy that left scorch marks on the rocks. Rin pulled back on the control stick, lifting the skiff over a small rise. He dropped down on the other side, the craft bouncing hard before straightening out. Then he accelerated toward a dead end. Behind him, the bandits thought they would trap him, but he turned the skiff's nose up, the canyon wall, engaging the skiff's short-burst jump thrusters. The skiff leaped over a pile of rubble and landed safely on a narrow ledge. The bandits tried to follow, but one hoverbike hit the rubble and flipped, its rider tumbling down the canyon. The last skiff ground to a halt, its engine stalling on the ledge. Rin parked his skiff and jumped out, scanning for dangers. The bandit on the ground skiff cursed, his blaster whirling. Rin stood firm. "Leave," he called. "This is not your fight." The bandit spat and shot at him. Rin sidestepped, drawing a simple stun baton from his belt. He struck the bandit's weapon hand, and it dropped to the stone. He hit again, on the chest, and the man slumped unconscious. Rin did not gloat. He turned back to Kalis. She had climbed down from the skiff, every movement slow and careful. Rin caught her by the arm, guiding her to safety. She leaned on him, her glow flickering like a dying star. He supported her weight as they climbed to a flat ledge where the wind was calmer. The canyon's narrow walls blocked most of the sunlight, and a cool shade fell over them. Rin sat Kalis on a smooth rock and knelt before her. He opened his medical pack and removed a small scanner. He swept it over her skin. The device beeped in quiet alarm. Kalis flinched at each chirp. Rin studied the readout. Her biofield was unstable. Energy spikes threatened to burn her from the inside. He sighed. "They hit your reserve," he said. "You need rest and medicine." Kalis's eyes met his. She tried to speak, but her voice was faint. Rin closed the scanner. "Don't talk," he said. "Save your strength." He tore open a packet of rehydration gel and offered it to her. Kalis accepted it with trembling fingers, the gel glowing faint blue as it slid through her lips. She swallowed, and the glow in her veins pulsed once, strong and steady. For a moment, they sat, in silence. The canyon walls seemed to hold their breath. Kalis looked up at Rin. Her eyes, alien in shape and color, shone with gratitude. Rin smiled. "You are safe," he said. "I will protect you." Kalis nodded, the edges of her lips curving, into a small, hopeful smile. As the sun dipped below the canyon rim, the desert turned violet with twilight. Rin gathered his gear, loading the scanner and empty packets into his pack. He helped Kalis stand. Together, they climbed to the ridge above, where the wind was cooler and the stars would soon appear. Rin led the way, one strong arm wrapped around her shoulders. In that fold of rock and shadow, Kalis found her first true refuge since the crash. She leaned into the human who had saved her, feeling his warmth and strength. And in her heart, the spark of hope grew brighter. She had endured pain and isolation, feared for her life, and faced those who would harm her. Yet here, in the arms of a stranger, she felt safe. And as the first stars of Tarsus 9 blinked into the sky, she knew that the bond they shared would carry them both through whatever lay ahead. Rin and Kalis crested the rocky ridge just as the first stars lit the dusky sky. Below them lay a narrow canyon twisting away into the desert. But Rin knew of another path, a hidden airstrip carved from the stone by long-gone miners. He guided Kalis down a worn ledge, careful of each step, until they reached a small opening. Beyond it lay a smooth landing pad, half buried in sand, and at its edge stood Rin's skiff, its dull metal scarred but ready. Kalis leaned against the cool hull as Rin opened the cockpit hatch. Inside, the cabin lights glowed softly, revealing padded seats, navigation displays, and a small shelf of medical supplies. Rin helped Kalis settle into the passenger seat and gently fastened the safety straps around her. He slid into the pilot's chair, his boots thudding against the metal floor. Kalis watched him, her eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "Hold on tight," Rin said, setting the skiff's power levels low at first. The engines whined to life, a soft purr that grew deeper as he increased thrust. Outside, the desert stretched silent and empty. Rin flipped a switch and bright lights under the skiff's hull cast long shadows against the rock walls. He eased the craft forward and then down the runway, accelerating with steady determination. The skiff lifted smoothly off the ground, rising into the cool night air. Kalis pressed her hands against the armrest, her glow pulsing softly with each motion. She looked out the window at the canyon walls slipping by beneath them, lit pale by starlight. For a moment she felt calm, as if the motion itself was healing her. But the night was not empty for long. Far on the horizon, points of light appeared, fast, low, and organized. Rin frowned and tapped the console. The radar screen flickered, showing several incoming contacts. He recognized the formation. Sky Raiders, armed with light assault craft and energy weapons. They must have tracked the skiff when it emerged, or perhaps they watched the wreck site and waited. Raiders, Rin said quietly. He flipped a lever, and the skiff jolted as the engines shifted to combat mode. The hull plates hissed as extra power surged into the thrusters. Kalis's eyes widened, but she did not struggle against her straps. Instead, she closed them more tightly and braced herself. The Sky Raiders broke formation into 2 squadrons and swooped in low, their craft shaped like hunting birds. They unleashed streaks of green energy that cut through the air, scarring the desert below. Rin banked left, rolling the skiff so that the shots passed harmlessly above. He punched the throttle, sending the craft into a steep climb. Kalis felt the G-forces press her into her seat. She laid her hands on the side panel, where sensors recorded her vital signs and biofield. Despite her wounds, her alien energy flickered in response to the excitement of flight. She remembered her planet's blue skies, and how they had glowed with energy fields that came alive at twilight. A memory flashed in her mind, fields of luminous grass waving under 2 moons, people gathering to celebrate the turning of the seasons. Then the memory shifted to darkness and alarm, flames on distant hills, the crack of weapons, and her world collapsing around her. A ripple of sorrow passed through Kalis, and the skiff shuddered as if sensing her pain. Rin glanced at her and saw her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. He reached toward her, but the cockpit's console glowed with warning lights. He focused, on the screens ahead, noting the Sky Raiders closing fast. "Stay with me," he said, his voice firm. "We'll outfly them." His hands moved over controls with practiced precision. He dipped the skiff's nose and dove toward a canyon mouth, skimming over rocky ridges. Behind them, the Raiders split again, 2 craft chasing from above, the rest swooping beneath the skiff in pursuit. Rin banked sharply, weaving between boulders that stood like sentinels in the canyon. He kicked the engines into overdrive, and the skiff's hull vibrated with power. Kalis felt her heart pound as the craft rattled. Dust and small stones scattered in their wake. Above them, the Raiders fanned out, trying to trap them in the twisting gorge. Then Rin found an opening, a narrow shaft of sky between 2 cliffs. He angled the skiff straight up, climbing so fast that the Raiders below hesitated. The canyon walls fell away, and for a heartbeat, Rin pointed the craft toward open desert. The Raiders, caught by surprise, tightened their formation and followed. Rin grinned. He banked, sending the skiff into a tight spiral that threw the Raiders off balance. One craft clipped a cliff edge, sparks and flame bursting outward. Another collided with its partner when they tried to avoid debris. The remaining Raiders shot energy blasts, but Rin ducked and dived, each movement smooth and decisive. Kalis watched, awe and relief mingling in her gaze. She felt her own energy respond, glowing stronger with each maneuver. When a stray shot tore past the cockpit window, she placed a hand on the glass, letting her warmth press into the cold metal. Rin noticed and offered a small nod, acknowledging her silent support. Finally, with one last burst, Rin shut off the afterburners and flew level, leaving the shattered Raider crafts behind. The desert night returned to its still hush. Rin exhaled, his face relaxed but alert. He guided the skiff southward, toward the human outpost where he planned to rest and resupply. Kalis sat back, her glow warm and steady. She turned to Rin. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft like a breeze through grass. "You saved me again." Rin reached out and placed a hand gently on her arm. "You have your own strength," he said. "You gave me a reason to fight." He smiled, and the bond between them deepened in that quiet moment. Above them, the stars of Tarsus 9 shone bright and clear. The human warrior and the alien woman flew into the night, together against whatever dangers lay ahead. Their flight through hostile skies became more than escape. It was the moment when 2 worlds truly met in defiance of fear and in celebration of courage. Night on Tarsus. 9 carried a quiet chill that crept into bones and machines alike. Rin guided the skiff to a hidden human outpost carved against a low cliff face, a cluster of domed huts powered by solar arrays and wind turbines. Warm lights glowed behind frosted windows, and a gentle hum of generators filled the air. Guards in simple uniforms waved Rin through, trusting the reputation of the lone warrior who'd saved so many. Inside, the outpost's chief medic, Marisol, waited by a cot. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and quick hands. Rin carried Kalis in, her pale form still faintly glowing. Marisol set to work without a word, cleansing small wounds on Kalis's arms and legs, then wrapping them in cool, antiseptic dressings. Rin stood close, offering supplies as needed and watching every move. The air smelled of herbs and hot water, a comfort after the desert dust. When Marisol had finished, she stepped back and nodded to Rin. He turned to Kalis, whose eyes shone in the lamplight. "You're safe here," he said softly. Kalis managed a small nod. Her breath was easier now, but her energy field flickered like a candle in a gentle breeze. Rin guided her to a low bench near a glowing orb that cast soft blue light across the room. Outside, the stars of Tarsus 9 burned bright and cold, but here was warmth and shelter. "Drink this," Rin said, handing her a cup of warm, nutrient-rich broth. The liquid smelled of roasted grains and spice. Kalis lifted it carefully to her lips and drank in small sips. Each swallow eased the tremor in her limbs and her glow steadied. Rin sat beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Tell me what you remember," he invited, though he did not press. Kalis closed her eyes. For a moment her breathing was still, as if she slipped beyond the world. Then softly she spoke. "On my world, we linked minds to share truth," she said. "It is how we trust." Her voice was almost a whisper, but clear. Rin nodded. He had learned that alien ways often hid deep power. "If you wish to share, I will listen," he said. Kalis offered her forehead to Rin's touch. He placed a palm there gently. At first, nothing happened. Then he felt an echo in his mind. A soft ripple of thought and image. Colors bloomed. Behind his eyes, fields of glowing grass under twin moons, cities of crystal spires, people walking in peace. He saw Kalis among them, dancing in sunlight. The joy was bright and pure. Just as quickly, the images shifted. Smoke rose above city walls. Dark shapes moved through streets at midnight. Kalis's people tried to heal the wounded with energy fields, but the sickness spread too fast. He saw creatures twisted by the plague, bodies broken, spirits dimmed. In the final moments, Kalis ran, clutching a small crystalline vessel. She raced past collapsing towers and fierce fires, then reached a ship. She lifted off alone. Rin withdrew his hand, breath catching. Kalis opened her eyes, tears shining. "The plague hunts us all," she said. "It is not only my world. It spreads through star lanes, carried in data streams and on trading vessels. If it reaches others, no species will survive." Her glow pulsed with fear and urgency. Rin stood and paced before the orb's light, mind racing. "We must warn the Alliance," he said. "We must build walls of power, share knowledge, find a cure." He clenched his fists. "I will help you. Humanity will stand with you." His voice was calm but fierce. Kalis watched him, hope and sorrow mixing in her eyes. She whispered, "Your courage gives me strength." Then she reached out, touching Rin's hand again. He felt her energy weave a protective pattern around his heart, a silent pledge of trust. Outside, a thin wind stirred the desert sands. The outpost's lamps glowed steady and bright. In that room, under the vault of Tarsus 9 stars, 2 strangers from distant worlds forged a bond stronger than any fear. They spoke in soft tones, planning the path ahead. How to gather allies, how to send warnings faster than the plague, how to unite human will and alien energy. By the time dawn's pale light brushed the horizon, Kalis's strength had grown. Her glow shone steady and bright, no longer flickering. Rin packed their gear and checked the skiff's engines. He paused at the door and looked back at Kalis reclining on the cot, a soft smile on her lips. "Rest now," he said. "Tomorrow we fly to the nearest signals hub. We will sound the alarm." Kalis nodded, her eyes full of trust. Rin stepped into the cool morning air, inhaling deep. The desert winds carried new promise, that when two worlds came together, fear could be met with courage, and loneliness with companionship. Their journey had begun under starlight, but it would not end there. Together, they would race against the coming darkness and show the galaxy why humanity and alien kind could stand united. Dawn broke over the frontier wall like a pale promise. Beyond its rusted metal and concrete barrier, the waste of Tarsus 9 stretched toward distant storms. On one side lay the dry desert. On the other, the narrow pass known as the Rift, where all traffic between the inner worlds and the unclaimed frontier funneled through. Today that pass would become a battlefield. Rin stood on a low rise just inside the wall. He wore the same light armor he always did, but now over his shoulder hung a simple sheathed blade of human make. Behind him, Kaylee stood barefoot on the dusty ground, her pale skin glowing softly with the energy she marshaled. Between them lay a ragged line of defenders, frontier farmers with pitchforks, former soldiers with old rifles, even a few merchants armed with repurposed tools. They looked tense, uncertain what to expect, but all eyes turned to Rin when he raised his voice. "Today we face a threat that spares no life," he said. "But together, we can hold this line. Trust in your courage. Trust in each other. I will stand with you." His tone was steady, carrying across the field. In the hush that followed, the defenders straightened. Fear lingered in their eyes, but so did resolve. High above them, Kalis lifted her arms. Energy gathered around her like a living shawl, threads of blue light weaving into a dome several meters wide. She called it a shield of defiance, a barrier strong enough to stop the bio-augmented drones the plague had spawned. The defenders watched in awe as the dome shimmered into existence, its surface alive with crackling power. Rin strode down the rise to a battered cannon mounted on a tripod. He tested its mechanisms and then turned to Marisol, the medic from the outpost. "Aim for the drone's engines," he called. "Lob shells that disrupt their circuits." Marisol nodded, her hands steady as she loaded the shell. A farmer beside her cranked the lever and the cannon barked. A glowing projectile arced into the sky and struck a drone, which spun out of control and fell in a smoking crash. That single blast brought a cheer, but there was no time to celebrate. 8. On the desert road, a swarm of bio-drones appeared, small insect-like machines that buzzed with energy. Their bodies were armored plates fused with alien cells, and their eyes glowed red. They advanced in waves, cutting across the sand. Toward the rift like a living tide, Rin raised his blade, its edge catching the morning light. He moved forward, positioning himself between the wall and the dome. Farmers and soldiers fell into place behind him, their makeshift weapons ready. Kalis's shield hummed above, a protective sky in miniature. The first wave crashed against the shield with a series of bangs and sparks. The barrier held, its surface rippling under the impact. Drones bounced off or stalled against it. Rin strode along the line, blade flashing as he met any that slipped past. He struck one from behind, severing its wing, then dispatched another with a swift slice. His movements were precise, economical. No wasted energy. Behind him, Marisol and the cannon crew fired again and again, the sky lit with arcs of fire and smoke trails. Each shell that found its mark sent a drone spiraling down. A group of farmers hurled pitchforks into the air, their tines glowing from the heat of the battle. When they hit a drone's casing, it threw sparks and fell limp. But the swarm never stopped. Wave after wave pushed forward. Rin felt sweat bead on his brow and grit in his teeth. His breath came in steady rhythm as he parried and struck. He heard Kaylee's call out from above, her voice carried through her telepathic link. "They will not break us," she said. and he felt the surge of her confidence. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A larger shape emerged at the edge of the swarm, a colossal drone the size of a small transport. Its body was a mass of churning parts, cutters, lasers, and energy coils. It smashed smaller drones aside as it advanced, sending the shield pulsing with each blow. Rin stepped back and shouted, "We need more power." Kalis answered in his mind, "Stand back." She focused her energy on one spot of the shield. Light turned white-hot, then burst outward in a shockwave that sent the giant drone flying back, its circuits overloaded. It crashed into the sand with a thunderous boom. Marisol seized the moment. She aimed the cannon at the fallen giant. Rin watched as she fired the shell, and the blast shattered the drone's core in a shower of sparks. The remaining machines wavered, their coordination broken. With a roar, the defenders surged forward, hacking and crushing the scattered drones. In less than a minute, the field fell silent. Broken drones lay like shattered shells in the sand. The shield flickered and then dissolved, leaving Kalis kneeling at the center, drained but alive. Rin sheathed his blade and crossed to her side. He helped her stand, lifting her gently in his arms. The defenders cheered, voices rising across the rift. Farmers and soldiers embraced. Even the merchants smiled through tears. Rin set Kalis down and clasped her hand. Marisol joined them, resting a hand on Kalis's other shoulder. Rin raised his blade once more. "We held the rift today," he declared. "We saved countless lives across the frontier. Remember this moment. Remember that fear can be met with courage, and courage with hope." Kalis's glow returned, steady and bright. She looked at Rin, then at the defenders. "You gave me strength," she said softly. "Now I give you mine." She laid her hands on the ground, and energy rippled through the sand, healing wounds and soothing hearts. The defenders felt warmth spread through their bodies as if touched by a gentle sun. The frontier wall still stood between desert and safety, but today it was more than metal and concrete. It was a symbol of unity, human and alien, side by side, standing at the rift against the coming darkness. And as the sun climbed higher, its light found the tiny sparks of new alliances, glowing bright against the red sands of Tarsus 9. Dawn painted the sky over Tarsus 9 in soft shades of rose and gold, as if the planet itself welcomed a new beginning. Rin and Kalis stood atop the high ridge where they first reunited, their silhouettes sharp against the brightening horizon. Below, the frontier wall stretched in both directions, and beyond it lay empty desert giving way to distant lights of human and alien settlements. A thin breeze bore the promise of change. Rin turned to Kalis, her pale skin aglow in the morning light. She no longer looked fragile. The fire in her eyes spoke of hope and conviction. He reached out and took her hand. "It begins today," he said, voice steady but filled with wonder. Kalis nodded, her fingertips warm against his. Together, they activated the skiff's long-range communicator. Rin tapped a sequence on the console, and Kalis merged her own bioluminescent field with the transmitter, amplifying its signal. The device hummed as it sent a beacon through space, reaching Alliance star cruisers, merchant fleets, and distant colonies. Their message was simple but urgent. An ancient plague spreads faster than any weapon. United action can save every world. Across the frontier, listening posts received the call. In the bustling orbit station of Malthera, an Alliance admiral paused his breakfast to hear the warning. On the sleek bridge of a merchant vessel, a captain halted his trade negotiations. Even on remote mining moons, workers ceased their drills to listen. Questions filled the void. Was this another hoax? Or a genuine plea from two heroes who had already faced the darkness and won? Within hours, responses poured in. The skiff's communicator crackled with incoming traffic, transmission requests, coordinates for rallies, scientific teams offering help. Rin and Kalis jotted down points on a makeshift data slate, their excitement growing with each fresh voice. Kalis's energy field glowed brighter still as she felt the collective resolve of countless beings reaching out to join them. By midday, A small convoy of relief ships hovered above Tarsus IX's Rift outpost. Delegates came ashore in sleek shuttles, human diplomats in blue uniforms, alien scientists of many shapes and sizes, even representatives from species once hostile to one another. They approached with cautious respect, aware that the world's fate now hinged on cooperation. Rin welcomed them, standing tall in his simple armor while Kalis offered a graceful nod, her aura inviting trust. In the outpost's briefing hall, a semicircle of benches under a high, domed ceiling, Rin rose to speak. His voice rang clear in the hushed room. "Friends from every star lane, we gathered here not to show power but to share hope. The plague we face is relentless, but it is not invincible. Together we will map its path, share our medicines, and protect our peoples." He swept a hand toward Kalis. "I found Kalis in the desert, wounded and alone. In helping her, I found my purpose. Now I offer you that purpose, and ask you to offer yours." Kalis stepped forward, her gentle glow bathing the delegates in soft light. "On my world," she said, "we believed we stood alone against the darkness. But we were wrong. Your courage reached me, now my energy will link to yours. We will build shields around worlds and share healing flows across star systems. No one must face this alone." Murmurs of agreement washed through the hall. Humanoid and xeno forms alike leaned forward. A veteran scientist from the Sarah Consortium unfurled hollow schematics of a resonant cure matrix. A human envoy proposed using Alliance freighters to speed medicine delivery. An avian elder, wings tucked respectfully, bowed and offered her species' healing chants to reinforce Kalis's energy shields. Each idea wove into a growing tapestry of unity. As hours passed, the delegates fashioned a plan, a network of sentinel stations to detect plague incursions, combined research teams to refine a universal remedy, and a shared defense fleet to guard supply lines. Rin and Kalis watched as borders dissolved in purpose, old rivalries set aside. Every compromise, every handshake felt like a spark igniting across the galaxy. When the summit closed, Rin guided Kalis back outside. They stood once more on the ridge where the sun now rose high and the air smelled of fresh promise. Below them, outpost lights blinked in orderly rows, and shuttles carried supplies and experts toward waiting worlds. A quiet sense of triumph filled their hearts, but neither claimed it all. Kalis placed her hand on Rin's arm. "You did this," she said. "Your bravery showed others the way." Rin shook his head with a shy smile. "You gave us the power to believe," he replied. "You showed us that unity can overcome fear." They watched the convoy lift off, sails of light tracing arcs into the sky. Then, as if in a shared decision, Rin and Kalis climbed into the skiff. He started the engines and piloted toward the outpost landing pad where new friends waited to see them again. The morning breeze followed, carrying with it the hopes of countless lives. Before taking off, Rin looked back at the ridge one last time. In the tracks left by his boots, small, blue flowers, gifts of Kalis's energy, had sprouted in the red sand. Their petals curved toward the sun, fragile yet determined. They were signs of life where none had been expected, symbols of renewal. "Our story began in a broken ship on deadly sands," Rin said, voice soft. "It ends with every world united." Kalis smiled, her glow bright as sunshine. "No, it only begins," she said. "For as long as we stand together, there will always be hope." With that promise shimmering between them, the skiff lifted into the new dawn. Across the galaxy, the signal of unity pulsed on every world, a call to arms not of war, but of compassion and courage. And as humans and aliens alike looked skyward, they knew that together they could face any darkness and create a light that would never fade.